Once upon a time, there was a poor farmer and number 39's family. The house only had a small plot of land, but there were 6 children. Later, that field will belong to the eldest son Taro. But with that piece of land, it is difficult to feed a large family. The parents decided to let their second child become a monk. He was Jiro, 10 years old. Even if he doesn't and 39's like it, the family will have less to eat. They knew that the monk lived at a small temple outside the neighboring village. This monk was willing to accept Dro to study with him. The temple is small, the poorest in the area, and the venerable monk here does not live very well. But he wanted to help Dro and number 39's parents. On the other hand, he was already old. He needed someone to help with chores in the temple. Not to mention he had to gradually think about finding someone to replace him as abbot of the temple. This temple. So one day, little Dro shaved his head, put on a black robe, and entered the temple to become a disciple. The small house built of wood was located a little away from the village, near a lake at the edge of the forest. To get to the temple, he had to go up the hill. A road through rice fields follows the dikes in the fields. The temple is old and frequent rain and wind have discolored the walls and almost erased all the words on the gate. Dro really liked the temple scene, but what attracted him most was the forest. Whenever he was free from work, he would run into the forest, pick fragrant flowers or lie down on the grass, leisurely looking at the sky through the leafy branches. The venerable monk was a very exemplary person. He did not force Dro to do anything. Work a lot. His job is to collect firewood, carry water, clean the temple, clean dust from wooden statues in the sanctuary and clean scriptures in the study room, and then occasionally help in the kitchen. The most serious thing is studying. Not only did Dro find learning to read and write difficult, but learning to memorize the classics was also difficult to understand. Even though he had good intentions, it was very difficult for him, and he also did not like studying. When the monk preached the sutras or wanted him to memorize the sutras, he refused to listen. But when he sat alone to study, he liked to run into the forest. The monk advised and scolded him, but to no avail. Every time he held the prayer book in his hand, Dro looked at the trees outside. The trees seemed to call him out. He felt like the trees gave off a seductive scent. He listened to the birds sing. So he ended his studies, just waiting for a convenient time to sneak out. The whole summer passed like that. The monk lost all patience. Many times, Dro left the prayer book on the grass. Then instead of studying, he ran into the forest. The monk felt depressed and found that Dro could never memorize a single verse of prayer, so on the occasion of the upcoming Anquat, pray for blessing Anquat ceremony, he called the little boy came over and said, "Son, I and number 39's am very sad to tell you this clearly. You probably won and number 39's become a good monk. Because a monk who doesn't and 39's know how to be polite and doesn't and 39's memorize the scriptures is no good. Nothing, it doesn't and 39's help people at all, it and number 39's just a burden to my friends. So I intend to return you back to your parents, even though doing so makes me very sad. So please return to your family. Stop, Don and number 39's waste time." The monk and number 39's decision was like a thunderbolt in RO and number 39's ears, he shed tears. If it weren't and #39 T for this boring study, he would have really wanted to become a monk. The monk saw the boy. Even when he was deeply moved, he took out 4 scrolls from the lacquered chest, gave them to Diro and said, "I Don and number 39 T know what I can do for you, but to make you understand that I and number 39 am not angry, I and number 39 LL give you 4. Each scroll has a picture of this temple and a passage of scripture on it. That is Buddha and number 39's teachings. The scriptures will help you when you are worried, sad or disappointed. Keep these scrolls, and now go." Diro did not dare to disobey the monk. He took 4 scrolls and put them under his robe, bowed down to thank the monk. Then with tears in his eyes, he walked out the door, took his straw sandals and went home. Feeling so agitated, Diro thought, and quote, "What will my parents say?" and quote, "when you suddenly find yourself back like this?" Thinking that, his tears flowed like rain again. But, just walking a few steps, hearing the sound of leaves rustling, smelling the sweet scent of wild flowers, he forgot all the sadness in his heart. Then, instead, because going home, he ran into his beloved forest. Because now he had countless hours to play, to freely go deep into the forest, to places he had never set foot before. Diro chased fragrant butterflies. Then hid behind a bush to see a lizard lying in the sun on a rock. He listened to the sound of birds singing in the branches. When he felt it was time to find a way out of the forest, because he thought it was about noon, then suddenly the sky became strangely dark, as if there was about to be a storm. All the sounds around him suddenly fell silent. This sudden change made him tremble in fear. He looked around and found it hard to understand. It was very difficult to recognize a gap in the forest. He thought to himself, "It must be dark already? Oh, I wish I could meet someone over there." Suddenly he saw on the other side of the gap a small old woman. She was limping towards him. She must have been very old because her back was bent too low. On her head, she wore a wide cloth hat, a patched dress, and a tiny belt around her waist. The old woman looked at him, grinned, her teeth were all missing. She said, "I met you here. How lucky for us. Looking at your bald head and the black robe you wear, I immediately knew you were a novice monk. Before long, I will become a monk. I am number 39. Am old, my legs are weak. I probably won and number 39. T be able to walk all the way to the respected monk and number 39's temple outside the village. Today is the first anniversary of my husband and number 39's death. I would like to ask the respected monk to chant prayers for the salvation of his soul. But now that I see you here, I ask you to come chant prayers for his soul in front of the altar at my house. Surely you wouldn't and #39 T refuse the request of a poor old woman like me." Diro wondered what was going on. He was very happy to escape the situation of being alone in the dark and gloomy forest like this. But what about chanting prayers? Should you tell the truth that you Don and number 39 T know how to pray? I can and number 39 T tell the old lady that I Don and number 39 T know how to chant. Because if he confessed, she would probably think he was evasive. So he agreed to follow her through the clearing in the forest, to a small hut, but strangely enough, just before, he had not seen anything. The hut was so small that two people entering it felt cramped. He saw that in one corner of the house, there was a board nailed to the wall used as an altar, and in the other corner was the homeowner and number 39's stove. Dero knelt down in front of the altar, recalling everything he remembered from previous prayer ceremonies at the temple. He recited the sutra to pray for the souls of the dead, and then with great difficulty he was able to recite the sutra. Words gained and words were lost. He was sweating profusely and his face was red, but the old woman listened very attentively. She seemed very satisfied with this prayer session. When Dero finished reciting the prayer, the old woman bowed her head and said, "You are very good. I sincerely thank you. My husband must have been very satisfied because he felt like he was not forgotten. But now it was dark and the way back to the village was far, so he would easily get lost. Let and number 39's stay the night here. I Don and number 39's have anything to offer you except barley porridge, but I think you and number 39's like it." Dero was so hungry that he ate the barley porridge and found it delicious. After eating, the old woman made a sleeping place on the floor just enough for two people. As soon as Dero lay down, he fell asleep. But he did not sleep well, perhaps because he ate too much porridge, perhaps because the hut lacked air, so even though he tried, he kept tossing and turning, waking up and sleeping again, sleeping and waking up again. Until suddenly he woke up completely. He turned around and his hand touched an animal and number 39's leg. It was clear that he had touched the feathers and claws. Thanks to the dim light from the stove, he clearly saw the leg, which was indeed the old woman and number 39's leg. Dero was so scared that his whole body was paralyzed, because he thought the old woman was probably not a person, but perhaps a fox or a badger tried to drag him into the cave to eat him. "I think we have to find a way to escape quickly. Carefully, slowly sit up." But when he was about to walk past the old woman, she suddenly woke up and asked him, "Hey kid, where are you going in this dark night?" "Ma and number 39's. I need to go out," Dero replied, his voice very alert outside. "Dark. I easily get lost or fall into deep abysses, and there are many abysses around the house. Let me tie you to a rope so you Don and number 39's get lost." The old woman tied a rope to Dero and number 39's body and let him out. When Dero just went out into the open space, the old woman immediately pulled the rope and said loudly, "Don and number 39's stay too long." Yes, I will go right in," Dero replied, fearfully thinking about how to deal with the situation. This situation. Suddenly he remembered the sutra scrolls that the monk had given him. Perhaps these prayer scrolls can help you escape from the immediate danger. Meanwhile, the old woman pulled the rope again and called to you. "Come in here, Ma and number 39's. Dero replied, slowly untying the rope. And tied the rope to a prayer roll, then ran on 3 legs and 4 legs. He had not run far when the old woman pulled the rope again and called again. How magical! The scroll had the heaviness of holding back, as if Dero himself was tied to the rope, and imitating his uncle and number 39's voice replied, "And quat. I and number 39's. Coming in, Ma and number 39's. And quat." Dero was secretly happy. He continued running. Every time the old woman pulled the rope, she heard Diro reply, "And quat. I and number 39. Am coming in, ma and number 39. And quat. I listened for a long time but still didn't and hash 39. See the little boy getting angry at the old woman. She then sat up to see what the boy was doing. Outside for so long. When she saw that the boy had disappeared, the old woman angrily stomped on the scroll and sniffed the ground to see which direction he was going. Having found the direction, she immediately chased the boy. She ran very fast like a strong wind blowing through the forest. In the dark night, Diro had not run far when suddenly he heard the sound of breathing and growling behind him. It and number 39's horrible. He turned back, and was so frightened that he almost fainted. Behind him, there was not an old woman with a limp, but the Yaksha, Ya Mamba, a notorious evil devil in the forest. Nostrils with two horribly large holes, two eyes full of veins and blood that glowed like two lights, and the muzzle was very formidable, with a long tongue sticking out, bright red, reaching all the way to the waist and bangs. Gray hair flutters in the wind like a horse and number 39's mane. The two long bony arms, the claws looked very disgusting, and the two hairy feet, as Diro had seen in the tent, pounded the ground. Diro ran one step and the Yaksha ghost jumped two giant steps. So soon the demon approached the boy, he stretched out his hands full of sharp claws. Diro was so scared that he took the second sutra scroll and threw it at the feet of the Yaksha. Immediately a river appeared between Diro and Yaksha. The river was filled with turbulent waves, separating them. Diro breathed a sigh of relief, took advantage of this opportunity, hurriedly ran out of the forest, and the sky began to light up. He continued to run down the road through the rice fields. When Yaksha saw that he was blocked by the turbulent river on this side, on the other side Dro was trying to run, she screamed angrily and stomped her feet on the ground. But then she calmed down immediately. She rolled up her sleeves, bent down and stuck her muzzle out to drink river water. Water flowed into her stomach and the river level gradually dried up. A moment later, Diro looked back and saw that the river was half dry. Then a moment later, he looked back and saw that the river was now just a ditch. And then, the water in the ditch also disappeared into the Yaksha and number 39's belly. She chased again, but ran slower, because her body was so wet that she had to hold her water-filled belly with both hands and run. Then Dasoa ran faster and faster because the water rushed out of her muzzle. But even though she ran slower than before, compared to Diro, she ran much faster than him, and he ran slower and slower. He ran back and forth in the rice fields, forcing the Yaksha to stop for a moment while turning. Because her stomach was full of water, turning back to change direction was a bit difficult. But this tactic did not bring good results for Diro, because he finally heard the Yaksha and number 39's panting and growling close behind. Immediately he took the third prayer scroll and threw it behind him. Immediately, a fire pit appeared right there. The fire jumped, flickered, rose higher, blocking the Yaka demon. Diro breathed a sigh of relief, trying to run faster, because he could see the village and number 39's rooftops in the distance. He tried his best to run, but when he reached the top of a hill, he heard a suspicious sound behind him. He then turned to look and saw a cloud of steam pouring down into the fire pit, and then the fire gradually went out. Lady Yaksha stood near the fire, pressing her hand hard against her stomach. Immediately, 2 fountains of water spewed out from his nostrils, and from his mouth came another waterfall, the water gradually extinguishing the fire. Dhiro did not wait to see the fire go out, he ran quickly down the hill. However, the Yaksha demon soon arrived behind him, sweating and black from the smoke. She opened her claws, and before she could grab him, he quickly took out the last scroll and threw it behind him. As soon as the scroll touched the ground, a silver light flashed, and then a mountain appeared in front of her. Every sword, every blade is shiny. And quote. Obstacles like this are difficult for anyone to overcome. Even the Yaksha demon can handle it, end quote. Dhiro said to himself. But to make sure, he still did not slow down, and then he saw not far in front of him a small grey pagoda located by the lake, looming in the morning mist. Halfway through the journey from the Mountain of Swords to the pagoda, he suddenly heard a cry behind him. The attack was very scary, along with that cry came growls and screams. The Yaksha was determined to devour the boy, so she did not hesitate to attack the Mountain of Swords. She held the swords, breaking them, pulling them up and throwing them away like weeds. Many times she cut her hands and torn her flesh, but in the end she was able to clear a path across the mountain. Meanwhile, Dhiro reached the temple where he said goodbye that day. The temple was silent and sleeping. He pounded on the temple door where the old monk was staying. But the old monk seemed to be sleeping soundly, because there was no movement at all. On the contrary, he heard far away the sound of the Yaksha demon and number 39's breathing and growling in the distance. Dhiro tried to punch hard on the temple door and shouted loudly, "Teacher, respected teacher." Finally, he heard it from behind. There was a sound of movement inside and then a sleepy voice asks, "What is that?" "Dear teacher, please let me in." Dhiro called for help, turning his eyes to look back. In the fading morning mist, the Yaksha demon is fiercely approaching. His clothes are ragged, his hair is singed, but his fire-red eyes are still creepy and his giant greedy tongue is still red, looking very hideous. He heard the monk inside yawn and answer, "Is that you, Dhiro? What do you want? Didn't and #39 Ti send you home yesterday? I know very well that I cannot become a monk. I beg you, please forgive me. Please open the door and let me in quickly. The Yaksha ghost is chasing me and is approaching me." Dhiro replied loudly. He was so scared, he was about to lose his spirit. What a stupid thing to say. When do Yaksha ghosts appear in the vicinity? Be good and go home. Idon and number 39 T need you. Teacher, respected teacher. The devil is near, hurry up, let me in. Dhiro begged. He stood glued to the door because the Yaksha and number 39's fire-red eyes were already shining on the lake shore. The sharp claws on its feet hitting the gravel in the temple yard made a scary clicking sound. The boy and number 39's urgent prayers made the monk change his mind, and just as the demon was about to pounce on Dhiro, the monk pushed the door latch open. Dhiro rushed in through the doorway, the Yaksha and number 39's long tongue sticking out after him, the demon determined not to let any prey escape its grasp. But the monk slammed the door shut. A scream rang out in the air, and the Yaksha disappeared. Everything was as before. The sun slowly rose, the sunlight filled the room, the respected monk stroked Dero and number 39's head. He told him that he wanted to challenge Dero again. And he never regretted this decision. From that day on, Dero became diligent. No one could lead him into the forest. Even the sweetest scent of the forest could not attract him. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.